This event is organized within the framework of the Infra for Next Gen project. So today we will give you some overview. Okay. Yeah. So today we will give you some overview of so how to understand data access to this existing social science survey data in Europe. You will get some clear guidance on licensing terms, so what all the licenses and permissions really mean in practice. We will share some practical resources and guidelines, and we will try to teach you access to this data so you have confidence in using the established data, and of course gain the necessary knowledge to incorporate this in your research or in your daily work. So hopefully you will be able to navigate research through requirements, and you will learn how to comply with all the access policies. So we will focus on 4 European Social Science Research Programs, which are European Social Survey, ESS, Cross-National Online Survey, CHRONOS, European Value Survey, EVS, and Gender and Generation Survey, GGS. So these are also tightly connected to this Infra for Next Gen project because of their substantial and really good methodological backgrounds. So if we start with the first group, which are ESS and CHRONOS, I kind of put them in the same table because they have something in common. So maybe we should start with ESS. You all probably know the ESS survey. It measures changes in values, attitude, behaviors across Europe. So it includes like face-to-face interviews with the standardized questionnaire around participating countries. So it includes like core questions about values and attitudes, and then each round they include some rotating thematic modules. So we will see that later. The data is collected every 2 years since 2002, so we have quite a substantial collection by now. And of course, the samples are nationally representative. So about the access, we will talk about this in depth a bit later, but now I can tell you that ESS data are available without any restriction, but for non-for-profit purposes. But we will check that later. So why I said that ESS and CHRONOS are connected is because CHRONOS is part of ESS in a way that respondents are recruited from ESS participants. So CHRONOS is actually an online panel service, and respondents are actually recruited from ESS. So this is an online version of let's say to monitor social changes between ESS rounds, but using online survey methods. As Irena told you before, CHRONOS is actually tightly connected to the project, and it is a new survey. By now we have 3 rounds since 2016, but they have multiple waves. So you will see in the when we will look into it, you will see that there are many different data sets on CHRONOS. So it's a bit shorter survey than ESS, but it was developed by ESS professionals and people who work on ESS questionnaire. So the same individuals can be surveyed multiple times from the selected countries that are included in the ESS. But access to this data is the same as to the ESS data. So it's available on the ESS website. We will see that in the following minutes. So the third thing that should be mentioned is the EOS Future project, but Irena kind of knows a lot more of that. So Irena, could you maybe explain why the ES project is worth mentioning here?
Yes, to add, one of the elements that we looked into is how to combine social science data with other data. So in this case, we did a combination of European Social Survey with the data from European Environmental Agency and Copernicus climate change data. So it's one of the example of really good and documented international data sets, interdisciplinary data sets also. And you can look into that, how we did it, how it was documented, and how it could be used. The idea itself in the back was that whether the climate change can influence actually the respondents' behavior, so how they respond on some environmental questions, and the idea was to look into whether in towns that had severe and problematic weather in the past years, whether respondents actually answered a bit differently. But yes, more information on that, a good example of interdisciplinary study.
So let's start with the first one of the first group, which is European Social Survey. So we will look into it a bit more than just like not just an overview, but let's see how you can really find the data and how you can access data. As I said, the survey measures the attitudes, behavior patterns, and includes different topics by different rounds, so like rotating models. So here on the right side, you can see all the topics included since round 1 to round 2. You can also see that there are all European participating countries, also Israel here. So you can see that a lot of countries actually participated in all the rounds, so 11 rounds. And if you click here on the website, you can click on this. This is like an interactive map. You can click on each country to get some specific and more information about the national survey. So another thing that is really important for you is ESS data portal. So if you go to the home webpage of the European Social Survey, you will see that you have here the data part, and if you click on this on data, it leads you to data ESS data portal. So here you can see these three survey programs that I mentioned before, but let's go to see what's inside European Social Survey. So you can browse by round, you can browse by team, or you can also build your own data file. So as by round, of course, this here we have more. This is like a screenshot. So on the website you have all the rounds included. You can see also by different topics. If you browse by different team, you can also see that some teams are more included than others. This is, of course, part of the current or relevant issues in the year that data was conducted. So the third thing that might be useful is this data file builder. So it's like a wizard. You can actually choose the data set. So if you go and click on data file builder, you can actually choose country and year, and you can actually select also which variables, meaning which questions would you like to have in your data set, and then you download the data set. So for example, I made a case on, I selected, so here you can see I selected Austria ESS1 and ESS7, and then variables of the internet use. So net use, nets, so you can see here it says 13 total, meaning that I selected all the variables on the topic of the internet media use, internet use. So when you build your data as you want it, you download it, of course. but now might be the time to mention that all the data that you download from the ESS, you need to log in, or like if you don't have an account, you need to register because they're following, of course, who is using the data. But for all the documentation, you can freely just download it in PDF files. We will see that in a minute. So yeah, you can download your own data file if you wanted something special or just selected variables. But let's go back to browsing by round. If we, for example, want to see what was in the round 11, so this was the latest one from 2023, you see here that it opens up the study documentation and integrated file edition 2.1, 2.0, and then you have also some other data sets, but these bolded are kind of like the last versions and the important ones. So you can click on both. So if we go to study documentation, it looks like this. You have some summary data access documents, some other documentation, and if you click on the documents, you have everything here on the right side, as you see on the right side. So questionnaire, survey documentation, appendices, show cards, contact forms, so everything that was happening when the data was conducted or before. So yeah, as I said, all documentation is available to download without any registration or login. So you can just click on it and download in a PDF format. But here on the on the left, you can see that there are also data files available. So the biggest data file and the most usable with all the variables is integrated file. So you can see here that if you open this file, you will see documentation, variable viewer, analysis, and of course the variables listed here. So you can see all the variables, meaning all the questions that are included in this data set. So, for example, we can see here media and social trust, politics, subjective well-being, health, gender. So there's, of course, more. But if we, for example, would like to make something from, for example, from the variable group media and social trust, we just click on the group and then all the variables open in a new window. So we see here, for example, news about politics, so watching, reading, listening in minutes. Internet use, how often are they using in minutes? So, and there's some statements. So agreement with statements, most people can be trusted or you can't be too careful, etc. So this is all clickable and you can see in details what this question really means. But if you click on this little arrow here, then it leads you to a variable viewer, it leads you directly to variable viewer, where you actually see the interactive graphs and a world map for comparison. So these are all interactive. You can click on it and you see even more. So for example, Iceland they really love using the internet. But just to go back, as I said, if you click on this small arrow, you get to the variable viewer, but you can also go to variable viewer here in this part, and then you can choose the variables you want to see the graphs and world maps for comparison. So this is really great because you can, for example, for your research, you can just go and see which questions might be useful for the research, and then you already can make a table or a graph, or you can use everything that is provided by the ESS on the website. So I mentioned before that if you want to download the data, you need to register. So let's say you need to log in. So if you can see here the login looks like this. So if you don't have any account, like not even Google, or you would like to use like a username and password, like a real account, so you can just create one, or you can just use Google on Finder. So this really depends on what you want to use. So let's not forget about the most important part that our users might have the issue with, is who can actually access the data sets, and what are the licenses, how can they reuse data sets. So actually, as I mentioned before, European Social Survey is the data are available without restrictions, but for non-profit purposes. And you can see here that they say, ESS say that ESS survey data is licensed under CC BY non-commercial and share alike. Meaning non-commercial, okay, this means for not for profit purposes, but share alike also means that you need, if you do something with this data, like you upgrade it, you add something, you make your own calculations, and you want to publish this, so the new data also needs to have the share alike license. So yeah, you just need to be aware of that. This goes for all the ESS survey data, and also, as I mentioned, for all the Kronos data. We will see that in a minute. And as I mentioned, documentation is of course, free of charge, but also without restrictions, and can be downloaded just in the PDF without any login or creating so without any login. And the license is CC BY, so like a normal license, you just need to CC BY share alike. So you need to cite, of course, all the documentation, and if you want to reshare it, you also need to use the same license because it's a share alike license. So this is so this means that ESS data is actually really available to everyone who would really like to work with data, especially with data made on a great representative samples. So it's great for learning, but also great for your other research projects. So let's not forget to cite the data here. When you have these conditions of use, you can also see that there are some citation requirements and citation information. So meaning, of course, you need to cite your data or the documents you have used. So they already they prepared already citations that you can actually just copy to your to you, so in your own documents. So here on the left is a citation of the data, so you can see data set here, and here on the right you have some cases of how to. So the first one is how to cite the ESS in general, and the second one is a case for a documentation report. But everything is, of course, explained in detail on this link below. Another thing worth mentioning is also resources about ESS. So the most important might be ESS bibliography, is actually because this is actually a database that contains documentations after publications. So about publications published using ESS data. So you might want to consider to be a part of this if you will work on ESS data. So of course, feel free to explore ESS bibliography in your free time, or if you would really like to get to find something that is already made on ESS data. So maybe we will just quickly go to the Kronos data, Kronos survey. As I said, it's part of the ESS. This is actually yeah, it's like a Chronos started like as a proof of a concept to proof of feasibility of a web panel. So they wanted to actually start a web panel, but based on a really great sample, based on ESS. Based on ESS representative sample. So they invited those people to participate in Chronos questionnaire also. So questions are a bit different as ESS, but some topics might overlap. And of course, as I mentioned before, Chronos survey has a bit less of questions, only 90 questions, and it's actually designed for a quick data collection on, as I said, methodologically sound and great sample of the ESS. So it was kind of designed to, for some special issues or current or relevant issues that might occur in some time. For example, COVID. So you have a great sample as from ESS, and then you just use it to do some more of the research. Okay, so since Chronos is also available on ESS data panel, you can see here that also, again, it looks very similar to the ESS, what we have seen like a few minutes before. All documentation is available without registration. So this is also the same as with the ESS. And all the data is also available upon registration. So maybe so as you can see, you have the overview of the Chronos, so you have all the documentation, and for example, here I have Chronos 3, wave 2, so there are more waves included, so you can see here wave 1, wave 2, and there are more waves included in each Chronos panel. But then, yes, you can also browse by theme. So these themes, Irena mentioned before, these are themes that are included also in the Infra for Next Gen project. So it's more it's like all connecting to these themes. So for example, I opened the theme Make It Equal, so you can see what kind of questions are here. So how widespread would you say poverty is in your country? Differences in income, tensions between poor and rich, young and older. So these are like questions of inequality, inequity in the society. So again, you can see these little arrows that will lead you directly to variable viewer, and then you will also you could also make the interactive graphs and interactive maps. So as you can see, this is the case of how widespread would you say poverty is in your country. So this is actually like a lot. You can get a lot of really interesting results at the end. You can, of course, this is free for use, also without login, so you can just you can see the questions and some basic graphs without any registration. But as said, data and documentation access and conditions are the same as for the ESS. But yeah, don't forget that documentation can be accessed freely without any login. So you just need to keep in mind the license if you want to reuse or cite this documentation. And for the data, you need to keep in mind that it's licensed under CC BY non-commercial share-alike license. So if you want to do something with it and you have new results, you need to license them under the same license. So also, let's not forget to cite the data. The same as goes for ESS. So you have a lot of this small windows of download and citation. You can see this on every page you go to. So you also have this option of citation, and you can just following these references if you want to, of course, cite your data. Well, check your citing rules for your research institution, but still you can just copy it and reuse it in your way. Okay, so the third research project is European Values Survey. Is a bit it's a bit different than ESS and Kronos because it explores long-term changes in human values across Europe. So religion, family, work, politics, but but the data is collected approximately every 9 years since 1981. So the data is not collected as often, but it is kind of it is made, so the collection is done on nationally representative samples, so they can, of course, see the long-term changes. Of course, the study focuses on value systems, religion, trust, work, well-being, democracy, and it includes standardized questionnaires across countries. So you can see here the outline. So all documentation is available on website. You can see here, I put a little screenshot here, and the dataset can be downloaded on GESIS data portal. So this is new. This is a bit different than ESS and Kronos because the GESIS data search portal is actually storing the EVS data. So also all the documentation and everything is available there. So if you still you can actually access GESIS data search portal from the ESS website. So here's, for example, for the survey of 2017. You see you have all this methodological information, all the documentation that you need, questionnaires, and here you see integrated data set. Here you can just click on it and it leads you right to the GESIS data search portal. So this looks like this. So this portal includes many different quality studies from Europe. For example, Eurobarometers and something else, but now we'll just focus on EVS. But I just want you to know that there is actually a lot of studies available on GESIS search portal. So yeah, European Value Study, you can see here, you have the abstract, and then you could click for some more information. So all the methodology is again here. And again, all the questionnaires, code books, other documents are available here. So you just click on it, they open in PDF, so free of charge, and of course free to open without any login. But the data set, again, for the data set, you need to log in. So you will see what happens if you click on the data set and you want to download it. You see here that the availability, so this is like how the data is licensed. It says that it is availability A, data and documents are published for academic research and teaching, meaning not for profit, again, only for like academic research and teaching. So you can see here they have these following categories. So please check for every data set because some data set might be different, even ESS. So as I said, you need to log in. So the registration looks a bit not really complicated, but you need to give them a bit more information about you because well, it's not like you can just log in by Google or by other other means, but you actually need to register via their registration form. So of course, they also provide you with pre-formatted citation options. So you can see here you can download a specific, they have four ways of citation, so you can use which one suits you the best. So just to let you know about European Value Study, there's also a world map or European map. You can choose the maps that will tell you something about the changes in values across Europe or across, this is called Atlas of European Values. So across European or also across world maps. You can also find some teaching materials, videos, and yeah, but this is very interactive. You can click on it, and yeah, this is just for like a something really interesting, and you can use by the European Value Study. So the last one is the Gender Generation Survey. So I would like Irena to step in and tell us something about that.
Yeah, thank you, Sergeja, for introducing a few data sets already. And yes, as we said at the beginning, we really wanted to give you some insight of how you can actually access the data and the documentation and what rules apply, because this is something that we sometimes forget, but it's also challenging to actually find some of this information. So we were also looking for some of these and just wanted to put it online for you on these slides. So the last study that we'll present is Gender and Generation Survey. It's one of the large-scale longitudinal study that was conducted across multiple countries. It's focusing on relationship, family dynamics, and demographic behavior. Just to add that it collects data on fertility, partnership, parenting, aging, intergenerational exchanges, and some other. But it's really important that we really see these across different generations. Survey itself is part of Generation and Gender program, which is coordinated by NIDI, the Netherlands Institute, but several partners there involved. It is the gender, so the sample itself is involving both genders, which is important, but in most of the countries, it's also covering the age between 18 and 79. It's a longitudinal study. It has actually 3 years interval, and we'll see also about the distribution of that. But it's also one of the important elements that we kind of forgot to mention in all of these surveys, that the questions that were introduced here are all theory-driven, and also in some cases multidisciplinary questionnaires. So it's really important to add that. Also for the ESS, you can always find a full documentation of how specific instrument was built and how it could be reused with theory and ideas in the back, which is also important for the research purposes. If you could go forward, Sergeja. What I wanted to show you here is that basically there were 2 rounds of GGP or GGS now planned, and each of the rounds would have 3 waves, which the rounds means that they change actually the people, the respondents that were answering these surveys. And also in the round 2, they updated the questionnaire a bit and renewed the methodology, so it is even more comparable between the countries that are there. Also to add here that there are several non-European countries added to these data sets, for instance, Australia, Japan, and some others. So if you're interested to the comparison beyond only Europe, it's one of the good data sets that you can look into that. This is a slide about different topics that are involved, added to the survey, but also some really national specifics can be found in national data sets like Brexit for the UK, but also, yeah, a lot of questions that are related to the COVID and how COVID actually changed some of the attitudes in family are available here. I would also like to invite you to look at the website and check the GGP Connected webinar series, which is really interesting because they are kind of covering the specificities in the countries themselves. We will try to run a visualization here of this is one of the examples of how data could be reused and presented. This is one of the animation of GGP data that is available. And what we see here is basically the life histories of two generations. So one generation, the green one, are the people that were born in 1950s, and then the orange one, the people born in 1970s. And basically, we are kind of following their change, whether they were cohabiting or marrying, what is actually happening here. And there are quite some differences between the two generations. So it's a lot of different interesting things that could be done with the data set itself. And if we continue, one of the aims of today is actually to present how to actually get to the data sets and how to reuse them. On the website itself, you will see the first menu item is actually related to the different data sets elements. And you can see here that it's not only gender and generation survey data, but also different data sets and different studies that are related to these topics, like family, fertility and family survey and other related surveys. So it's really good that you have everything combined as access here on this page. But if you go on the one of the collection itself, you can also see different information about the data sets, when some studies were collected, also the age range. You can see that there are some differences between the countries. The mode itself, as we had seen also for ESS, a lot of surveys are now moving online, but also moving online because of, especially if they were conducted in the COVID period for that. But I would also like to mention that the data, so the sample sizes of these data is quite large. There are around 10,000 responded per country, let's say in wave one, and I think a bit less in the next waves, but it's still quite a lot. And so you can really do a lot of comparison for that. Yes, on the data portal, you actually get these three main windows: explore GGP data collection, and then access GGP microdata and work with GGP data. And with the work of GGP data, actually on the right-hand side, I kind of copied the menu here. You can see that there are a lot of basically documentation on different studies, but also one of the important elements that you as a researcher will always get is actually the direct access to the baseline questionnaire that is, I think, in this case, used for the second repetition of the collection. And I added also here the link to the direct questionnaire itself. So I think one of the next slides is actually broadcasting how do we explore the GGP data collection. And in this subpage, you will have different viewing possibility, but also different access to the data sets, so the round one to round two, but also all these related studies. And you can see the kind of viewing by the country, but also by the data sets. What I presented here is, is basically just a clip of what is actually in the web page, and it also reminds you that the data itself is actually available through portal. So when I click of one of these waves, I actually get this information. So it's basically a data set summary, which is really a summary. It's not full documentation, because full documentation is available through the Collectica portal, which you can find on the top right hand side when you see Explore dataset on the Collectica. But also on the top side, you will find different other access buttons, like access to the dataset, to the catalog, to the agreements that you would make directly with the GGP. And also bibliography. But in the meat of this data summary, you can find also information about the access and the citation. So let's see what is actually written in these documents, so you have a bit of an impression of what you agree upon when you use the data. The project itself, the team is requesting you to submit a statement of affiliation. So this is basically a registration form, which we'll see a bit later. And as we had seen with other data sets, it's important to cite the data set itself. So here is basically information that you're supposed to cite. And later on in full documentation, you can also find a concrete citation requirements or recommendations, which you will move to your citation standard, as Sergeja was proposing before. They also require to, if you go back, Sergeja, a bit, they also require to submit any research papers based on the data set itself, and they will be added to this bibliography section to the web page. So you can also, as a user, you can also go there and see. And for the accessing conditions of the data, you need to actually subscribe to the data using GGP data user space. If we continue, so the full documentation actually on Collectica portal, it's much longer. It's several pages, really good documentation of what was a study about, how it was collected, about the methodology. All of this is written in one of the most common metadata standard for the documentation of social science data, which is also used for all the CESSDA archives and large European social science studies. But in the documentation itself, in this detailed summary, you will also find links directly to the country-specific questionnaires in the country-specific language, so you can also see that. And then you can also get access to different data files through these. And in here, you can browse different variables, but you can also get to the Explore dataset directly. If we can continue. So basically, it's a similar view and distribution as we see in other surveys. Sergeja, if you could move to the next page. When you see information about the question itself, how the question was actually put, in this case, how did you and your partner meet? And then we have also some of the answer categories already here so that you can have a bit of an impression of what the data set looked like before you download. What you had seen now, basically, it's again, similar as with CESSDA. A lot documentation is actually available online, and also some of the visualizations are already available online. You don't need to register for that. And there's also, a different view when you can actually have a full list of different questions, how they were put in the questionnaires, and you can browse by groups, and you have then similar views as the frequencies, and I think also some graphs for that. In order to actually access the data themselves, you need to create an account. And these are the questions that are part of the account. Nothing specific. One of the questions that I open up, and you'll see here, is whether you are actually a student or if you're a PhD student, researcher, and professor. So it's one of these, and then you define what is your position. So if you're not actually in a position of a researcher, but in any other positions, you can also define here. And this is being then approved in usually around 10 to 15 minutes. It's not done automatically, as in the case of CESSDA. These are manually, I believe, actually checked, but it's usually in a few minutes' time. And once you get the account, you then get a list of different data sets and different waves. And you will see that with each of the data set, you have a separate agreement that you need to sign. And once you sign this agreement, you can download the data sets in different formats. So it's available actually for the analysis in Stata, in SPSS, but you can also use it in Excel or convert it in any other tool that you can use. So for each of the data sets, we sign an agreement. An agreement, a bit of a text of agreement, is basically similar to what we had seen before in the conditions of use. So you're basically stating that you only use this data set for the purpose of a research. The data is supposed to be used for the non-commercial, non-proprietary scientific and policy research purposes. So it's basically non-commercial license for the data itself. And one of the elements that project actually reminds you about is that it's not only you that needs to register, but actually all the collaborators that will be actually working on these data sets. So if there's a team, please don't only you register and share the data, but everyone needs to register and actually kind of agree to all of these. And in case that you're a student, is basically also the supervisor that should actually sign this. And yeah, I just added a few more slides on different views and different access possibilities. You can also access actually the training data sets. And this is just one of the visualization that you can also find online in different publications and different views that is there. We were a bit long, but let's now try to see if there are some questions. I think I see some questions for that. And I can start answering, Sergeja, and if you have anything else, please add to that. I think you should be able to see the questions.
Yes.
So there was a question about licensing, how you state the license. If we need to know that there are few elements. So if you're only reusing data in order to create your own reports, policy documents, or basically your scientific paper, you will only cite the data. You will not define the license for that. But if you're joining the data set with a different data sets, as we did in the case of ESG Future, when we were combining them with other data sets, then we actually use the most restricted licenses for the new publications. And these information will usually be available when you publish these data sets. So you would publish the new data set in the repository, be it your university repository or some other trusted repositories, and then they will always ask you about the license, and there is the place where you define the license itself. So in the publication that you're writing, you don't do that, but when you publish the data. I hope this answer the question. Let me see further. Can you perhaps say something about the services for questions about the data? Are there possibilities to ask questions about specific coding or similar? I'm not certain I understand the questions. Sergeja, do you see that?
So so in this webinar, we did not include a specific like question or answers regarding a coding or anything that's happening behind the survey programs. We're just kind of sharing how to access it or what to do with the survey programs. So
But nevertheless, I think there are always possibility to ask the teams. I did send some questions because it's also for the preparation of this webinar. We needed to find some elements. So it is always possible to ask about it. But also do have in mind that we are going to have further events on these, and we'll make a note with Sergeja to ask the speakers that are basically the ones developing the questionnaires and everything related to that to explain a bit of that. Thank you. There was a comment from another participants about the GGS itself, and the person would like to let us know that it's the GGS survey is including non-binary gender options. This is also one of the elements, yes, that some of the surveys are moving in the direction of including different gender possibilities there, and GGS is one of them as it is. And there's information about the option or future possibilities to link ESS data with admin data. You can always do that on your own. The project itself is not necessary doing that. As we had said, we had one of the examples when we are talking about a combination with climate data. But yes, for sure, there are possibilities. It is possible, especially if you're doing your analysis based on a country, that you yourself would then create some of this information there. However, it's a good element if there's going to be a special project for that, perhaps in the future, how to actually link that. Sergeja, if you would like to add something.
Maybe just, if you would really like some specifics, maybe you could also contact ESS and, share your thoughts with them if you like. to do some connections or linking data.
There was just a comment here in the back, and also we'll check that out about the Kronos database and accessibility of socio-demographic data. Just one of the elements, and perhaps that's a solution. I'm not really certain, but as we had mentioned, the Kronos data is based on respondents that were joined the ESS survey. So some of these demographic questions that you would automatically assume that are part of demography are in the block of linkages between the ESS study. So you will find the questions for the Kronos themselves, but there's a special grouping that is data from ESS. So some of these information were not again asked in the Kronos itself, because they were actually moved or joined, linked with already existing data that are in the ESS themselves. So you will find them in this section usually.
Yeah, just to keep in mind, because otherwise everything is linked on the website, so you will find it.
Yeah. Just to really add, as Sergeja pointed out, the team is usually quite responsive. So if you find any errors, if you would want to have a bit more information, do please contact them directly. So I would like to give the floor to Sergeja back to wrap up this event. We would really not like to be too long for that. And just to remind you that we have a short exit survey, and we would really welcome some of your comments to this. Yeah, Sergeja.
Yeah, so hopefully you have a better understanding of data access pathways, licensing terms, and actually where to find data and what to do with this, with the data that we just presented today. So I would like, at the end, I would just like to invite you to the forthcoming events that are within the Infra for Next Gen project. Soon we have some cluster and factor analysis with R, and then you can see there is like a list of really useful useful events for different audiences. So please feel free to go to the Infra for Next Gen website. If you have any additional questions or if you need some help, feel free to contact us. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for being here today, and yeah, hope to see you on other events.